Hi, everybody. This is Kyle Thompson with Thompson Burton Real Estate. I was about to post part 2 of my series about all of the class action lawsuits engulfing the real estate industry and their effect on buyer agency when a very big news item was announced just a few hours ago. So I wanted to add this to the top of my second video. The NAR has agreed to settle all of the current lawsuits for $418 million to be paid over the next 4 years. They have also agreed to do away with the requirement that listing agents pay buyer agent commissions, ban listing any buyer agent commissions the seller is willing to pay on any MLS, and require all buyers to sign a buyer agent agreement before they tour any homes. This is an absolutely seismic development that is going to change the real estate industry to its core. They are estimating that 1 million real estate agents will leave the industry because of these changes. And when you consider there are only about 3 million agents in the US, that's a big number. Now more than ever, choosing the right buyer agent is critical for anyone looking to buy a home. And with that, let's get started with part 2 of my series, where I discuss what questions you should ask every prospective buyer agent you are considering. So this is part 2 of my series about how to choose your buyer agent. In part 1, we discussed the class action lawsuits in the real estate industry and how they are rapidly changing the industry. If you'd like to see part 1, I've got the link to it on the screen. In this video, we're going to talk about what questions to ask as you are interviewing buyer agents. So stay tuned. Question number 1, are you a full-time real estate agent? If I had to pick only one question that everybody in America would start asking their potential real estate agent, this would be it. Surveys that have been conducted show that less than half of real estate agents are full-time. They have a second job. If you type in part-time real estate agent on your search engine, hundreds of websites will come up explaining how easy it is for real estate to be a part-time gig. Folks, trust me when I tell you, this is not a job you can do well part-time. And it's not just about having the time to spend showing homes and negotiating contracts and doing inspections and all of that. I spend far more time on training and education than working with clients. But you have to invest a huge amount of time into education in order to advise your clients well. And you can't do that if you're a part-timer. You have to make sure they are full-time agents. And don't take their word for it, Google them. Between their Facebook and LinkedIn profiles, you'll know if real estate is a full-time gig or not. Question number 2, how many homes do you physically walk through each year? And if the answer is anything less than 500 per year, keep looking. Viewing homes online just isn't enough. And I know that this is perhaps a surprising number 2 question. I mean, why not just ask how many transactions somebody has done instead? Well, that question's on the list too, but at the bottom of the list. This one is far more important, and the reason is this. The only way to really get to know a real estate market is to walk through a whole bunch of homes. By walking through hundreds of homes a year, you learn the neighborhoods, the attributes of the neighborhoods, what's around the neighborhoods, those 3 streets inside the neighborhood that are way better than the rest, and those 3 streets that are way worse than the rest. You learn about architecture, about home flow. You learn what attributes are desirable and which aren't. You learn what makes a good remodel and what makes a bad remodel. Which neighborhoods are turning over and improving and which ones are going the other way. And most importantly, you use all this information to learn how to price homes. You can recognize when a home is a unicorn that is worth far more than what the comps say it's worth, as well as a home that has some attribute that makes it worth far less. You can't do that just by looking at photographs. The photographs show what they want you to see, not necessarily what you need to see. At our company, we do a broker's tour every week where we get into an average of 10 homes every week, rain or shine, holidays or no. So we're getting into 500 homes in addition to what I see with clients. Throw in the homes with clients, and I'm inside between 700 and 800 homes a year. Now imagine working with a buyer agent that has been in that many homes year in and year out. In Salem, a city of 170,000, there are about 35,000 single-family homes. So an agent getting into 800 homes a year will within 5 years been in around 4,000 homes, a little over 10% of the total housing stock in the city. If you've been inside 10% of the available homes, you know that market. Compare that to the agent that only goes into homes with clients who is a part-time agent who does 5 transactions a year. That agent, after 5 years, has been in 200 to 250 homes, less than 0.6% of the total housing stock. Which agent do you think will be able to advise you best? What buyers need to understand is that you aren't hiring a real estate agent to help you find a home. I mean, you don't need us for that. You can do that on your own. What you're hiring us for is all of our previous steps to help advise you as you buy a home. All of the homes that we've been inside before we met you to help us guide you in the purchase. We like to say, finding a home is easy, but buying a home is hard. And if you hire an agent that hasn't been physically inside thousands of homes, you are denying yourself a really important source of knowledge. Question number 3, tell me 3 interesting things I don't know about the city. Now this, I admit, is a trick question. The purpose of this question isn't to find out interesting things about the city. It's to gauge whether the potential agent is paying attention to what's going on around the city. If you are paying attention, you'll know what infrastructure projects are happening and where, what sorts of projects are being considered for vacant lots, where the new park's going to be built, which streets are being widened, which ones are being improved, where the new pallet housing camp is going to be located, and a lot of other things. All of these things can have a pretty dramatic impact on the value of a house, up or down. I'll give you one example. We have a new Costco in the south part of Salem. Now, it's not new to the city. Costco was in a different location and they moved to this new location. As with all Costcos, the building and parking lot take up a lot of space. The space before was completely undeveloped. It was a treed lot not too far off the last Salem exit for the interstate and surrounded on 2 sides with residential neighborhoods. It looked kind of like a park, and it had for decades. So for all the homes near it, they had this undeveloped, picturesque green space across the street. Long before the Costco coming soon sign went up, there was a lot of discussions about the development of the land in city council meetings and neighborhood association meetings. So if you were paying attention, you knew that eventually that beautiful view was going to go away. We had been warning our clients about it for a couple of years. But if a buyer agent wasn't paying attention and helped a client purchase a house nearby 2 months before that sign went up, a year before the traffic increased 1,000-fold, well, that house is now worth far less than what they paid for it. But the only way your agent can know to warn you about such things is if they are constantly researching what is happening around the city. Question number 4, what sorts of training and education have you done recently? You know, I spend 10 to 20 hours typically helping my buyers purchase a home. But I spend hundreds of hours on education and training every year so that I can advise them well. We are constantly attending trainings on changes to relevant laws, on hazards to the home, construction trends, market trends, and many other subjects. These things are fluid. They are always changing, and we need to be constantly educating ourselves so that we can advise our clients with the latest information. The moment you back off on your education is the moment that everything you know becomes obsolete. Question number 5, how do you determine the fair market value of a home? And if the answer is, I run comps for recent and nearby sales, and that's all you hear, move on. It is very easy for a real estate agent to think that their last 2 to 3 transactions are a window into the relative strength or weakness of the overall market. It rarely is. If an agent isn't attending weekly trainings on the state of the market at a national, regional, and local level, their knowledge is out of date. And you can't just rely on looking up comps on your computer either. Pictures can lie. A good photographer and stager can make a dump look like Street of Dreams. Looking at pictures also doesn't give you insight if there was something about the home that made it far more or far less valuable. Now, I mentioned this in question 2, but I'll say it again. Getting into a lot of homes is key to this question as well. When you have been in thousands of homes, you know when a house is worth more or less than what the comps might say it is. Sometimes a lot more or less. I had a recent buyer who wanted to purchase a historic home. We came across one and oh my gosh, it was stunning. This house had gone through extensive remodeling, completely remodeled kitchen and bathrooms, basement waterproofed and remodeled, all the stonework around the fireplace lovingly restored. It had all the charm of a historic home and all of the modern conveniences. It really was a unicorn. And I told my client, if you want to buy a historic home in Salem, this is the one to compete hard for because most historic homes are not even close to being this good. At the price the seller was asking, it was already a good deal. And she competed hard and got it and was beyond happy with her house. I spend a lot of time analyzing the market so that I can determine a fair market price. Make sure your buyer agent is doing the same. Question number 6. How many transactions have you done over the last year? The main thing you want to find out here is whether the agent is doing enough transactions that rust hasn't set in. If you only do a couple transactions a year, you're not going to be sharp. How good at your job would you be if you only did it a few times a year? You really shouldn't hear anything less than 10 per year. That said, more is not necessarily better. I'd much rather hire an agent that does 10 transactions a year, but also does all the other stuff I've talked about, than an agent that does 50 a year and doesn't. You want your agent to be knowledgeable and do enough transactions that it's second nature to them. 10 is about the threshold where you can get into a groove. So, to wrap things up, the class action lawsuits are rapidly changing how real estate is conducted everywhere in the United States. States are starting to require buyer-agent agreements to be in place before a buyer walks into a single home. Agreements that put the buyer on the hook for paying their buyer agent if the seller won't. And because of that, it is in the buyer's best interest to start asking a lot of questions of their potential agents to make sure they're going to get the kind of professional representation they want. I would also say that buyers shouldn't be afraid to fire someone who isn't performing up to expectations. The alternative is to start writing big checks to someone you don't feel deserves it. And I'll leave you with this last nugget. If you find yourself having trouble deciding between 2 or more agents, pick a house and schedule a few showings, at different times of course, with each agent. The agent that gives you the best information about the house, about the area, the market, hire that agent. They're the ones that'll help you make a good decision. And that, folks, are the best questions to ask your real estate agent. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on this video and I'll respond to each one, or reach out to me. And if you think this would be helpful to someone you know, share it. And if you liked what you saw here and you want to see more, hit the subscribe button on your screen and you'll be alerted when my next video goes live. I'll see you next time.